Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. 'Tis some visitor, I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more.
Welcome back to Visited by Voices, Obscurity Report. Today we will be covering Extraordinary Tales, a film made for release in 2013 that saw its U.S. premiere in 2015, 2 years later. We'll get into all that. First, I'd like to introduce Sam.
I'm completely unprepared.
What happened to your homework, miss?
The dog ate it.
This is why I'm
We
a
did
cat
have
person.
a dog staying with us for a while, so that, there was a dog here in this house.
Entirely possible, then.
Yeah, no, I just fucked up and watched See No Evil and Wait Until Dark because it's been a couple of weeks.
There we go. Jonathan.
What it is, yo.
Did you watch the correct movie?
I did.
Did you understand it?
You want me to be honest? I'll save it.
Okay, cool. Stone.
I did watch the correct movie. I enjoyed it immensely. 5 Edgar Allan Poe tales told in Netherlands animated form. As somebody who doesn't care a lot for the animation genre, I'm surprised to be very positive with it lately.
Yeah, I'm not huge on animated films either, but this I don't. There was a talking but no singing bird in this, so I think we're good.
Yeah. That's what killed it for me.
Also, B Movie Mike.
What's up, guys? How's it going? And yes, I did watch the proper thing, although I fell asleep toward the end of it and had to rewatch the last one twice, which made it twice as bad. But we'll get to that later.
I can't imagine why you fell asleep.
Dan.
Hey guys, I'm excited to talk about this one. I've never seen it. Animated films are
What?
there's a lot of gaps with animated films. That's one thing for me.
So
Haven't
let's
seen it.
cut right to this chase now. As a newbie to animated horror, Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned, or
Bless you.
Extraordinary Tales.
I gotta go with Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
Hamburger.
Very different films, though.
Yeah, well, a little bit, right?
Very, yes.
Susan.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, yes, I did watch the correct movie. I'm prepared with my Poe homework. I love Edgar Allan Poe, so I'm excited to talk about it. And I'm not normally an animated feature kind of person, but yeah, it's cool. We'll talk about it for sure.
Awesome. And Jay.
Hello.
Now, Jay, you have watched your share of animated films.
Sure. I think I watched the right one. From what you guys are talking about, I think I saw the right one. I thought I was watching the wrong one the whole time, but
All right.
Oh, that's
So-
a good one.
This film was kind of a oddity in a lot of ways, but so by the time this thing was produced, video stores were dead. There wasn't really an outlet on cable for this sort of thing or on pay, and streaming was a bit too young. So this movie fell through the gaps for a lot of people, and it was something that I did see. years ago, and when I talked to people, if it came up, everyone just gave me a blank stare all the time. So it seemed like a perfect match for Obscurity Report, where we seek to get some exposure to films that not just are off the beaten track, but are also like almost don't have a path back in a lot of cases. So let's just go for some initial impressions. Let's start with Dan's initial impressions, and we'll work clockwise. Then we'll hit you, Mike, in the middle.
Sure. So I hadn't ever seen this. Poe is huge in my life. I mean, from not just the literature. I mean, the Roger Corman Poe films were among the first horror films I saw. So always very important to me in my my rise through the horror genre, because I adore them. Extraordinary Tales has some issues. If you've read the stories, they do have to condense a lot of it quite a bit, which it's a 70-minute movie, 5 stories, including and the wraparound. You're not going to be able to highlight everything. But what I really loved about this was the different animation styles that each story had, which kept it interesting, because, you have that opening with the fall of the House of Usher. I thought they really captured the big ending quite well. I thought that was visually magnificent. We have kind of one segment that resembles kind of like a Frank Miller style black and white animation that I also really enjoyed. It's not a mainstream movie by any means, and I know it's one that will probably have trouble finding its audience, but I'll be honest, I really loved it quite a bit. Any shortcomings that I had, little stuff, I thought the voice of Poe, again, nitpicky. I don't know, I just didn't hear Poe with that voice actor for some reason. But the wraparound I thought was amazing, with Poe as the Raven. And if you are a fan particularly of animation, you get everything here. The watercolor look, you get. I adored this movie, but I sense I might be in the minority. I'm not so sure, but if you are, again, a fan of the stories, just understand, 70 minutes, you're not going to get every little detail.
Jay, your top line remarks.
Was it 70 minutes? I didn't even think it was that long.
72. Yeah.
Okay. Bear with me. I'm probably not going to have a whole lot to offer here, but I am a big Edgar Allan Poe fan. Read quite a bit when I was a younger man, and some really interesting animation techniques in there. I'll go with the positive first. The last one I wasn't crazy about. My favorite was The Pit and the Pendulum, but even that felt underwhelming to me. I don't know, man. I wasn't impressed. The animation looks cool. It's not too long. I guess that's a good thing too. Yeah, pretty much all I got.
I think my favorite was the facts in the case of M. Valdemar. I like that EC Comics look.
Mm-hmm. We're definitely going to need to talk about that segment in a bit, but Susan.
Yeah, well, I've been a Poe fan since I was a kid, so and like Dan said, as far as the Roger Corman Poe films, Vincent Price, I mean, I'm a huge Vincent Price fan too, so I kind of come into it from that aspect. So I am kind of in the middle of the road on this. I love it just because I think they had a great idea. They had some narration of Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi and things like that, and then they had other people narrate, and to mix that with animation, I thought that was kind of really genius, really cool. But again, I also kind of agree with Jay that there's certain aspects to it that for whatever reason just don't feel as gripping as just sticking your nose into his actual writings and that sort of thing. So I did also feel that a little bit was lost, but but I enjoyed it overall. And then again, also like with Poe's voice for the Raven, the voiceover for that, I do feel like they were trying to make it more of a Raven voice than a Poe voice, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just got like, if a Raven could talk, this would be the voice, versus if it was Edgar Allan Poe as the Raven, even though that is what they were doing. I don't know. So to me, I thought that the way the wraparound was done was a little bit more interesting than the way they did some of the segments, though. But you know, but overall I really like it, because I just think it's great that they all, you know, put everything together and did this really colorful, imaginative tribute to Poe. So I enjoy it overall a lot.
Stone from 20,000 feet.
Yes. Okay. Well, I had read Poe like 20 years ago, and I would have caught up and read those stories this weekend to prepare, except for the fact I was preparing for something else. But I was able to watch the movie several times, and going back to what I was saying about the animation genre, I think Dan hit upon something that made me realize, you know what? If you're not comfortable or you can't swallow the animation style early on for feature-length animated movies, then it's just going to be a drag throughout the whole thing. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I've never seen Akira. I know I have to see Akira, but I have seen Heavy Metal at least. And with this one, with Extraordinary Tales, I did like the fact that they changed up the animation style. We didn't get bogged down on one set one for like 73 minutes. I mean, you know, very clever, very imaginative. I wish I could comment more on how faithful these individual segments are to the actual stories. But that being said, the last Poe related thing I saw was the John Cusack movie called The Raven, which I personally found to be an absolute disappointment, even though I adore John Cusack. I mean, I really enjoyed Extraordinary Tales despite my aversion towards the genre. I like the voice work for the most part. I would like to know when that Bela Lugosi when that was recorded. Yeah, I want to know when that was recorded specifically, because it sounds like everything else was done around 2012, 2013, judging by Christopher Lee's voice. I may be wrong, but you know, I'm actually surprised, aside from Bela Lugosi, they didn't try to get any other like classic actors and their recordings of Poe into it. But at any rate, I mean, that's just my 2 cents for the time being. So
Awesome. Mike.
Well, the general consensus seems to be on par with what I thought. I loved the wraparound. I loved Poe as the Raven having a conversation with Death about his fascination with her, and how all of his writings tie back to that fascination with his own demise. And the fact that he is dead and acknowledges it, but continues to return to the graveyard to torture himself. I don't know, but it was good. The animation was great, and I liked how it changed. I really liked the Telltale Heart. It was very Frank Miller. I like it with the contrast and the gain. It was just like it was black and white, so the whites were way overblown, really bright, and the darks were very dark, and it almost seemed like a live action in some parts. It was so well done, like with the three cops, the bald guys. It almost looked like that was like Sin City style in a way. It had a really nice approach to it, and I love the Bela Lugosi recording. You can definitely tell it's very old because you can hear the scratches in the recording. But he made that segment really pop for me. I mean, I really enjoyed listening to him recite the Poe words, and so that one was great. And I did like Paul, the House of Usher, and of course Christopher Lee. You know, he could read a grocery list and it would sound amazing. I mean, he's the guy is top notch, and the animation in that I thought was really well done too. And it felt to me like almost the best put together segment as far as beginning, middle, and end. It really did. It did the best job of all the segments of telling the story. And Telltale Heart is probably my second favorite. And then I did like the one about the mesmerizing the dead guy. I can't remember that title for some reason. It's
The facts and the
something
case
about the M.
M.
Voldemort, and then I start thinking about Harry Potter. It's like, that's a weird title, but I like the segment. I thought it was really cool. Those three were the highlight for me. And The Pit and the Pendulum was okay. It was just kind of drug. I don't know. I like the animation in it, but everything else was just kind of, when are they going to get to the point? It just seemed kind of like a drug a little bit. I don't know. I like the animation though. And The Mask of the Red Death, like I said, I slept through it the first time and didn't really get much more out of it when I rewatched it. It was okay. I mean, was this like educational material for middle schoolers or something? It was kind of like an introduction to Poe without getting the full Poe. If you know what I mean, it was kind of like brought down a little bit, because Poe was a really weirdo. I mean, but he was very fascinating, but he was out there. And then I love reading some of the stuff. Although, like with most written word, I have a little problem with some of the repetition in poetry. I'm not that guy, but overall, I enjoyed the animation. I thought the music was pretty solid. Christopher Lee, Bela Lugosi were the highlights, and the mesmerizing the dead guy was right up there with the rest of them. But yeah, the wraparound story was great. I don't know, Dracula eating a cheeseburger or whatever definitely trumps this.
Well, but that beats everything. That's not.
When I think animated films, I think like Fritz the Cat, but that's just me.
Nice. Yeah, good callback. So as far as like mesmerizing the dead guy goes, because just in case anybody at home is confused, I have not watched this movie because I fucked up, and I'm gonna take full responsibility for fucking up. So mesmerizing the dead guy is at like Weekend at Bernie's, because I haven't read The Case of M.
Voldemort.
Yeah, that title just does not fly off the tip of your tongue.
Facts and the Case of M. Voldemort.
Okay.
Yeah,
More like
no
Bernie's too.
Yeah,
well, actually,
much more
wasn't there
big difference?
There was a live action movie produced in the early 90s, late 80s that was some stories like that. What's that? Two
Evil Eyes had George Romero adapt the same story.
Yeah,
right. And I liked that one. I mean, I think.
I don't. I'll
really,
take this.
I thought that was well done, and I kept my brain kept going back to that one. It's like I've seen this before,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of liked it better the first time. But I don't know. That's just me.
We'll definitely get to that segment, because I think that everyone has something to latch onto there because of the earlier version. But Jonathan. First of all, Jonathan, have you read any Poe?
Oh, come on, dude.
You got to.
What the shit that they made me read in middle school, which is coming up, okay? That's what I've read. I want to fully acknowledge this film was not made for me or people like me, okay? And I get that. And I understand why it's people like, there's a lot of people like me out there. I get why this is cool. Okay, I promise I get why it's cool. That being said, fucking snooze fest. The Telltale Heart is the shit. Okay, that's always been a cool story for me. Anytime I've seen that adapted, it's usually pretty cool. I think there's an adaptation with David Hyde Pierce in it too that I remember seeing when I was younger. And it was really good. I dig that story. It was the best part of this movie, including the animation style.
Mm-hmm.
Bela Lugosi sounded like he was talking in that can, because I'm assuming that was forever ago when that was recorded. So I'll give it a pass. It's technically a well-made film. It looks great, sounds great, with the exception of Bela Lugosi. Other than that, you cannot keep my attention on any of that shit. It's a combination of things, mostly that it's boring. I'm sorry. I watched it. I get why I'm supposed to like it. I just don't fucking like it.
Can we just all take a moment to appreciate Jonathan's candidness?
I want to give him a round of applause. Like, there is nothing that I appreciate more than like just brutal honesty in all aspects of life, and I think that like that should be respected and enjoyed. And I'm like, I feel that. Like, I think that most of us can like see both sides of it too. You know what I mean? Like, so.
I gave it the old college try, and like I said, the Telltale Heart is a badass story. Like, I always liked it, always have. And it was they did a really good job with it. Well, no, they didn't really do a really good job with it here. the animation looked cool and shit, but like you could do that. You could do that story better. And yeah, like don't use Bela Lugosi just because you have a fucking recording of Bela Lugosi. Like if you have a better quality thing that you can use that. Like just do that.
I'm gonna disagree strongly there. If you have a recording of Bela Lugosi, you use.
I don't
fucking Bela
give
Lugosi.
a shit. I don't give a shit. It didn't add.
I know
anything.
you don't because Kentucky.
It didn't add anything.
But what about the analog? Like, what about like that crispy, crackly, like ambient quality
Yes.
that the really
I love
old
that.
stuff brings
I
out?
love
Like,
It did not
I
mix
freaking love
with
that.
that art style though.
yeah,
Like that was the big problem I had. Did not look
Yeah.
like it went with it.
Well,
yeah,
I think-
yeah, that's true. Because that's kind of like Sin City versus. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, like if they would have done a more vintage
think-
style.
I think it might be
maybe.
where your references are though, because I didn't see Sin City. I'm getting that from you guys, but to me, it's like what Frank Miller was inspired by, which is German Expressionism, which is brings us right back to Dracula and Frankenstein. So to me, it does match.
Yeah,
I mean, it's gonna
yeah.
depend really what your cultural references were to begin
Looks
with.
very modern to me. Very, very
That's what I'm
modern.
saying. That
style.
feels very modern, and then the recording didn't match that for me.
Yeah, it's like low tech meets high tech.
Right.
But not,
Yeah.
not that doesn't mesh well, because I did notice that myself. But I understand that Lugosi's been dead for a very, very long time. So when this was recorded, it was when techniques were in their primordial state, and to try to compare that to Christopher Lee's recording, which was done much more contemporary, that there's going to be so I just gave it a pass for that. I was just happy to hear Lugosi's voice and the way he pronounces words and construct sentences. That to me was cool, because how often do you get to hear Bela Lugosi do anything in something like this? So to me it was special, but I will meet him halfway where I find most of this kind of stuff to fall on the pretentious side of things that bore me, because I feel like I'm supposed to pretend I'm hip enough to be down with it, when in actuality I do agree that some of it can get dry really quickly and lose me. It's kind of boring, but I still appreciated there was still enough here in the film.
The
that we
last story,
watched it.
everybody can agree that shit was just.
Yeah, the Mask of the Red Death was just like, why bother? I mean, just throw in another rendition of the Monkey's Paw while you're at it, or something. Give us something entertaining, You
just don't get it, man.
Yeah, I
The
guess I
last
just
one
don't get it, man. I'm just not hip enough to hang out at the poetry cafes and drink large cups of coffee. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, sorry. I think in terms of the cast too, most everybody has connections to Poe. I mean, like I said, Roger Corman goes hand in hand for me, because those films were just key for me. And I did like the different animation styles. I think that's what made it unique for me. I can kind of see the last story is going to be most people's least favorite. The watercolor kind of look, but I enjoyed it. And it's so rare that we get this. I will say, for reference, there is an adaptation of a short adaptation of Telltale Heart called Pupheads, which was, I think, meant to be a series that didn't get finished or something. And I mean, this is more on the art house side of things. Ironically, there is a Lovecraft series as well. That's kind of Lovecraft as a kid, and it's a little more adventure oriented. But
Lovecraft and the Frozen something.
Yes, yes.
I tried. I couldn't get through it.
It's a little more geared to kids. Yeah.
Well, not just that. It's just it breaks one of my primary rules, which is that when you have a big bad, you let the big bad remain a big bad no matter who you're gearing it towards, and there they turn Cthulhu into a puppy dog. And I'm having issues with that.
Cosmic horror.
I want to point out that the fact that this was a cartoon is not what the issue was. Cartoons are fucking awesome. Okay, like that was not the issue here for me. The animation was awesome.
You were more the pacing, I guess, right? The
snooze.
It was kind of uneven.
Yeah.
I felt that was kind of what brought it down. And what the Corman's involvement, I thought, should have been more than one sentence, considering how important this work is to his career. He got one sentence. It's like, really? Why couldn't he do a narration or involve him more than just one sentence? That just seems such a waste.
Yeah,
Probably money.
He charged by the word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it almost doesn't even count at that point. I mean, to me, I don't know, kind of like just a little cameo or something. It wasn't like a narration per se, you know.
Definitely.
Say the sentence and I can put your name on the box.
Yeah,
I
narrated by
felt-
Roger Corman, kind of.
I felt a bit nostalgic for the Bela Lugosi because I don't know about you guys. I'm probably the only one, but I actually grew up listening to this LP called Boris Karloff and His Friends, or An Evening. Oh, you actually remember it, Lauren and Daniel? Yeah,
I can see the cover in my head right now.
I see the cover myself. Yeah, An Evening with Boris Karloff and His Friends, who. Yeah, Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Jr., Dwight Fry, all those guys.
Lionel
And yeah,
Atwill
it was
was
just basically Boris Karloff talking for like an hour about Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and whatnot. And that's what this Bela Lugosi thing was like to me. But I still want to know when it was recorded and what for specifically.
It was recorded for an album that was only ever released in Mexico in 1938.
It sounds like it.
Wow.
And so Guillermo del Toro, as executive producer of this thing, actually brought his own copy of the record because no one could find another one.
Oh, wow.
So this recording is incredibly rare to begin with. So if for no other reason, if you hate the movie entirely, the fact that we have something preserved from Bela Lugosi that otherwise would have definitely been lost to history.
That's why I gave it a pass, because I was just happy to have something from Lugosi.
Yeah, and again, I think it's going to depend what Lugosi means to you. Like, this is not meant as a slight, Jonathan, but clearly Lugosi doesn't mean all that much to you.
No.
So that's not going to have power for you. Whereas to me, that segment has more power because God, classic horror, golden age is my thing. Yep. So you add Poe, that it works now. So my view of this film is that this is definitely an imperfect project, but it's one that shows its lack of focus and its budget. But still, we're talking about an animated anthology of Poe stories told by some of the greatest voices that have ever graced the genre. I mean, it might miss the mark, but it's
I would have liked Vincent Price.
Yeah, I agree.
He was dead.
Maybe Boris Karloff, like he was saying. I'm sure you could have dug something up from Karloff and Price, and then you could have had at least 4 out. Del Toro got the gig because he's the producer. I mean, he didn't do a bad job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not slighting him.
No. I mean,
I think Price would have been better.
Yeah, I don't think they had any recordings of Vincent Price doing any of it though, because that would have made my life. I would have been like 10 out of 10. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, you have him reading The Raven off of the beginning of the film, his version of The Raven, but I think that's the only thing I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But that said, I mean, I liked also that there was something like Julian Sands is not necessarily a horror actor in particular, but he's
Lauren. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I didn't even see this movie. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 because Julian Sands is narrating. So
you just
Warlock.
have a crush on Julian Sands
until I die.
Okay, but I'm saying I think that including someone as modern and recognizable as Julian Sands, to me, helps the project not be just a nostalgia trip too.
I agree.
That works for me. But so my view of it is this: I love it for what it is, not what it could have been. Mm-hmm. Because if you go down that road, you're going to be disappointed. There's no question about it. If you are a horror lit junkie, this is going to have power for you. If you are a fan of classic horror cinema, this is going to have power for you. So because here's the thing, I agree that Mask of Red Death is the weakest of the bunch, but the fact that they were honing so close to the Corman production and had Corman actually have his line, which my understanding is that was from an outtake from the set of the film that they just incorporated it into this. Okay. It was like stage direction that they just borrowed. Because it's definitely a younger Roger Corman, not an old Roger Corman.
Yeah.
So to me, like, this is for a certain type of horror fan, and it's very, very narrow, perhaps, But I'm going to tell you what I hope this film can do. Because if I was 12 years old, just starting to read horror, just getting into horror film, someone shows me this, I run to the bookstore. Absolutely run to the bookstore. Because there's enough in this that as a kid would have just blown me away and lit the fire. Now, I had other things like that fire, so I'm not saying I needed this film, but I really clearly see that in my head.
And it was one of the problems I had with it is I felt like it was aimed toward 12-year-olds. And I'm obviously not 12 years old.
Yeah.
But I do have enough respect for Poe's work, although I'm not a diehard literary guy. I'm more of a movie guy. But I did appreciate what they did with it, and having Lugosi and Christopher Lee, and there was enough elements in it that it made me enjoy it, and I was glad I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very narrow audience. It's not something you just recommend to anybody. It's somebody you would have to know that's into certain specific things. Like it worked for me because of my love of early horror, specifically, Universal and Hammer. And then of course, Corman's one of my, I love his studio, and most of the, that's really how I became B-movie Mike. A friend called me that because that's what I watched was Roger Corman and all that stuff. And, I'm going to start calling you B-movie Mike. That's all you watch is B-movies. I've never heard of this stuff. Well, that aspect of it did, apply to me. And for that reason, I enjoyed it, and especially the wraparound and a couple of segments, and the animation was good. But yeah, I could definitely see where this is very limited audience engagement with this one. It's not going to be a huge hit with your basic audiences, but I would definitely recommend somebody just check it out if you can. I mean, it's on Vudu, it's on Amazon. It's a quick watch, 72, 73 minutes. And if you fall asleep during the Mask of Red Death, you didn't miss anything.
Well, to be fair, that's pretty true of the story when you're reading it too. So
yeah, I mean, I think I've come to appreciate Mask of the Red Death a little bit more as a story since I've gotten older. But for me, like growing up, the Cask of Amontillado was always probably in my top 3 favorite Poe stories, and I'm like, well, I don't see it on here. Maybe swap out Mask of the Red Death for Cask of Amontillado. I'm just saying.
Who's a famous alcoholic that we could get to narrate that?
I mean, I'll do it, but I'm not that famous.
You're an ex-alcoholic.
I know. I'm bad at it.
you can't get that role anymore.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr.
If you do it,
alcohol.
Why not?
So, what is all you? I mean, you kind of some of you did chime in on this initially, but what is your connection with Poe to begin with? Because I think that is the other aspect that really is going to inform your appreciation. I'll start by just saying that while I definitely appreciate Poe a lot, classic horror writers, he's not even in my top 10. So it's one of those things, like I know all the stories, I've read them, but I always have been kind of annoyed that people focus on Poe the same way that modernly people focus on King. I would love an animated anthology of Arthur Machen stories.
Algernon Blackwood.
Algernon Blackwood, yeah, that's completely down my alley. Henry Kuttner, any of those cats. Which, admittedly, we're talking 40 years, 50 years after Poe, but but I still have an affinity for Poe. It's just I'm not the biggest fan, and it still worked for me. So let's start with Jonathan. What's your connection to Poe?
Absolutely nothing. I remember in 7th grade we had to read like 2 or 3 stories, and that was it. I'm useless on these things. I don't know why you keep having me back.
Don't worry about it.
Eventually, because we need to have that person that eventually is won over, and that's like the climax of the series.
There
Yes.
you
That's
go.
it. Then we just end it and fucking credits roll.
Yeah, it's literally we'll be like, I like this movie, and we'll play the end credits.
Yeah, Wonder Years theme song hits, credits go.
At least Jonathan's here to make me look a little better. So
I am extremely uncultured. So
Dan, what was your connection to Poe?
Well, I read everything. 5 or 6. I think I probably read my first Poe story. I can't say exactly which one was first, but Poe, much like King, was available, so you were able to read everything at a young age. And this is before Amazon, eBay, and I honestly I would probably prefer like an Algernon Blackwood as well, but I didn't know who he was back then. So we
neither
had.
did I.
Yeah, we had Poe. We didn't have the Willows yet, or at least, again, I wasn't aware of it. But around the same time, like I said, very early films was the Corman Poe flicks. I believe Fall of the House of Usher was my first, but I saw all those like at the same time, very young. And it captured my imagination. It really did. And there have been adaptations of Poe that are not exactly accurate, but I enjoyed those too. I enjoyed Stuart Gordon's Pit and the Pendulum.
Yes.
That's totally
So even something like that, which again, not although a masterpiece, some would say by Full Moon standards, which I love Full Moon. I'm not shitting on Full Moon, but
Okay, go ahead.
Well, if they made it today, there's a good chance that the pendulum itself would have been animated and smoking dope.
Please stop.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yes, we'll have
How did
like
a bug get in here? Sorry.
gingerbread cookie as Prospero and all this crazy shit.
That I'd be all right with.
Susan,
That
Susan,
part's okay.
what was attacking you, Susan?
I somehow a bug got in here earlier today, and it's just it's like a
is it a mayfly? Because you have those out there, right?
heat sinking missile for me. I don't know. It's 100. It was like 102 earlier, so it's with the doors open and closed and letting the dog out. Some weird insect got in here. It's a tiny fly of some kind.
Is it a gold bug?
No, it's just a tiny fly.
2 people got that joke. All right.
I got it.
Are you sure you're not hallucinating because of the heat?
I probably am.
I gotta say.
I hope you don't hear heartbeat.
The person down here in the square just like a cat.
She hears a heartbeat.
I'll be like,
on my grape tree today I did find baby lanternflies, so they're back, by the way.
Nice.
No, that's not good. That's a really bad
They're
thing.
babies. You just said so.
And they're cute. They're black and speckled, but they're gonna grow up to be big lanternflies that are gonna jump into my face because that's what they did last year.
no.
But then they'll
They're
make more
big.
babies.
They're big when they're adults. But
We keep getting scorpions in the house, so I'm just like, okay.
Mike, your connection to Poe.
School. I mean, my connection to horror film, whenever we had a chance to choose our own books to read, I would always look for something that was up my alley. And, you have very few choices in school. I mean, hey, Edgar Allan Poe sounds good to me. I can read, obviously. But I'm more of a Rodney Dangerfield type from Back to School. I saw the movie in and out in 90 minutes. It takes, I hate the fact read a book, especially if it's a long book. You got maybe half an hour. And then the next time you might get 2 days later, get a chance to go back. You have to reread what you already read and maybe a couple more sentences. And then, got to go do something else back a couple days later. So it's like the old video games. I can play the hell out of the first 3 levels, but the rest of the game I don't know anything about because I have to keep replaying the fucking first 3 levels, and that's kind of like reading a book. Unless it just engrosses me and I can't put it down, which has happened, but it's kind of rare. But yeah, I liked Poe. Like I said, though poetry has never really been my thing. It's a lot of repetition, and it's just kind of like, but just get to the damn point, so I can read this nevermore. You know what I mean? It's like The Raven is a decent story, but how many times does he have to say nevermore before it's not cute anymore? I don't know. It's like I'm kind of in the middle here. I was like, I'm trying to appreciate it because I know that it's worth appreciating, but my brain is constantly hitting the reject button. It's like, no, I don't want to. No, but at least with the animation and the voices and everything, it was still enough to keep me interested in watching the animated show. But yeah, Poe, he was a really weird dude, and he wrote really weird stories, but I really appreciate his weirdness. I don't know.
You know who I'm surprised they didn't reach out to is Jeffrey Combs, who played Poe in, I think, one of the more interesting Masters of Horror episodes. I was a little surprised. He seemed like one that, because again, the voice didn't feel like Poe, and it was like not a big thing, but it did irk me a little bit.
I think we all assume we know what Poe sounds like.
That's true. That's true.
It's kind of a crapshoot. Stone, your connection to Edgar Allan Poe.
Well, like Bombastic said, in 7th grade, I read several of his works, including The Raven. And then I remember our English teacher, Miss Kaufman, showing the, of course, everybody's seen the Simpsons episode with Bart, where they do The Raven, which is probably the best version of that poem, obviously.
Yes.
I got to say, though, in terms of just movie adaptations, though, I think my favorite Poe adaptation, even though it's very, very loose, is still 1934's The Black Cat with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi.
Mhm.
And I remember on when Sarah Karloff visited by Voices, and she said that she can't watch that. She like literally can't. And I don't blame her. It's a pretty disturbing movie. I mean, regardless of... but I mean... I need to go back and read more Poe eventually. I mean, I've been away from it for so long. I mean, like I said, I was so busy working on other stuff this weekend, I didn't get a chance to delve back into the stories. But I am a Poe fan. I just need to return to him.
Susan.
Oh, school. I remember starting to read Edgar Allan Poe when I was, I don't know, single digits. I don't remember exactly what year. Or what grade, but I think we had to read The Raven for something. But I just remember, whether it was that or whether I just picked it up myself in the school library or whatever, it was just I was always a very deep thoughts type of kid. I was just like a little adult. I was never like, my report card said Susan gets along great with adults and the faculty. Why doesn't she want to talk to the other kids? It was the truth. And so I just felt like his material addressed things that I hadn't seen before, I mean, even though I was a kid. And it was just very intriguing to me that he brought up things that normally otherwise I wasn't seeing in literature then. So I was just really drawn to his work. And then going through school, of course, his stuff crossed several more times. What is that fly? I'm so sorry. Now it looks bigger. I don't know.
That means it's a different one.
It better not be.
Check under that couch.
It's Jeff.
Wait, what's worse, if it's a different one or if that fly spontaneously grew?
I don't know, but
it went through
I don't know
those
how
ponds.
it got in, but it has to get out. It doesn't have to go home, but it can't stay here. But yeah, so I just really liked Edgar Allan Poe, and then just from the sense that he addressed a lot of things that people either don't want to look at and delve into, or that they think is, off limits. So it was always just, it drew me.
Jay.
Yeah, similar to what some of the other folks have said, probably school initially. I think I do have a book around here with a collection of his poems, but, like some of you guys said, I was always, drawn to horror stuff. So that's the first thing I was going to go read, when we're at school and we're forced to do it. So, but, yeah, I always like this stuff. It's kind of like, kind of how you feel about King, though. It's kind of like, I don't know, played out is the right word, but it's just, it's been done to death. And, I've read The Raven like 100 times, I don't need to see that done anymore. It's just kind of,
So let's go to the facts in the case of M. Valdemar. So I think, has everyone seen Two Evil Eyes? Is that a pretty safe assumption?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I have.
Jonathan has not, because he does not like Argento or Romero. They're boring.
Wait,
not
you said
entirely
two
wrong.
evil
Evil
eyes?
Eyes?
I haven't.
I haven't either.
Okay, so more
Wow.
not than have. A little surprised, but that's okay. Interesting watch, not very satisfactory to me because I don't like either adaptation. I think Argento's Black Cat pales considerably compared to what Sergio Martino did with the same story within Your Vice is a Locked Door and Only I Have the Key. Or even the Fulci adaptation, which is troubled too, but at least kind of feels like Poe at times. But George Romero adapted the Facts in the Case, and I've always hated that version of that story. It feels like a unedited Tales from the Dark Side episode that was like just all the raw material stitched together. It has no sense of drama. It has no sense of rising terror. It just happens, then ends. And it was the first time I'd seen anything from Romero that I had a blah reaction to. Now, that would happen a few more times before he was done with his career. And even I had worse reactions than this blah at the very end of his career. But it was a demarcation mark for me of like the moment where I no longer thought that Romero could do no wrong. So I will say that I prefer the version in Extraordinary Tales far more than Romero's take in Two Evil Eyes. What about those of you who have seen it?
Very different tones, but I would agree. I have fun with Two Evil Eyes. I can separate the book from the film adaptation on most things. I'm a big Lovecraft guy, even more so than Poe, so I had to learn early on there's film craft and then there's the literature, because it's often quite different, and interpreting a lot of Lovecraft is challenging. But yeah, I thought this was a beautiful story, a beautiful adaptation. The EC Comics look off the bat, I really enjoyed quite a bit, and it's a disturbing story. It really is, and we even get a little bit of gore in this one, which is certainly not a gory movie. But there are a couple little things in there. There's some not very graphic orgy action going on. So this one's not what I would call like a kid's film. Maybe more teens, but I think this captured the mood better than Two Evil Eyes.
Two Evil Eyes is one of those that I forget. Like, I don't like it, and it sounds so much better on paper.
I hear you.
I go and watch it again. I'm like, oh man, that's right. I don't like this movie.
Was there an orgy in Mask of the Red Death, a story?
There's intimations of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not graphic, but yeah.
So Jay, it's interesting because I think that especially with a lot of our friends, like it's hard to find people who will talk about Two Evil Eyes and anything less than glowing reviews. But I mean, it is a deeply flawed film.
You know, I was just thinking when you were saying that, is that the downfall of Romero and Argento? Like, I'm trying to think of what good they did after that.
I like Stendhal Syndrome quite a lot, and I think that I think Trauma has its moments. It's definitely a step down, but it's not like his big drop off yet.
You're getting close, though.
You are. Well, Trauma was his U.S. film, so I mean, he had pressures, you know. But I like Stendhal Syndrome a lot. I really do think that film deserves a reevaluation by most of the fans that have dismissed it over the years. And I even like some of Sleepless a lot, although Nan Sohano is, again, a film in search of a story.
The opening of Sleepless is very strong. The first 15 minutes,
all the train stuff is amazing, and the death by flute is amazing too. But yeah.
Well, it's no card player.
Well, nothing is card player, and I'm pretty happy about nothing being card player because 2 card players would be. I remember when Giallo was coming out, his film Giallo, and I was so excited. But I'm like, he's leaning back into it. Let's, and no, that thing's a nightmare too.
Yeah.
It all leads to the third Mother film, though. That's the ultimate disappointment. So.
His Dracula adaptation is next level bad.
Yeah, but that's a whole different thing. Like, there's no effort in that. So you look at that and you go, okay, like Third Mother, man, he's going to his classic catalog, right?
I like it. I like Mother of Tears.
I like the baby being thrown off the bridge. That's it. That's it. Mike, you've seen Two Evil Eyes, have you not?
Yes, I have. I wouldn't consider it to be the greatest film I've ever seen, but for me, directors are visual artists. It's a visual medium. I like Argento's visual style as well as Romero's visual style. I also like Guillermo del Toro's visual style, but he is another one that I find I love half of his movie, the visual part. And the music's usually pretty good, but if he writes it, it's not as strong. So I tend to think of film as a visual medium. Did Two Evil Eyes give me what I wanted visually from these two directors? I could say, yeah. But Poe for me it's not untouchable. So it wasn't that big of a deal to me that they kind of went their own way with it because I wanted to see their way. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was the greatest thing I ever saw. Was it better than Body Bags?
Yeah, probably.
But, but I still enjoyed Body Bags too.
No, it wasn't.
Poe's not sacred to me, but I do like to see a little effort, so I can see where you're saying. If you're really big into the story and you don't like the beats, you don't like Two Evil Eyes for that reason, that's cool. I enjoy it. It's not something that I would watch all the time, but I have seen it a few times, and I have an okay time with it.
I think it would work great as an hour-long movie with those episodes cut down to half hours, to be honest. I think the problem is there's too much real estate there. And it's not about for me, it's not about a direct adaptation, because the way I view it is books are books and films are films. Mm-hmm. To pretend that you can make a film into a book or a book into a film and retain its character is ridiculous. But that said, we take something like Sergio Martino's Your Vice is Locked Door and Only I Have the Key. Deviates wildly from Poe, and yet guess what? It nails everything you need it to do to be a great piece of work on its own. And by the way, if you haven't seen that movie, all I can say is that you really are missing out on one of the best giallos of all time. That just happens to also be a Poe adaptation. Yeah, I know that's a weird concept, but Martino pulled it off.
And I like the way the story was presented in this manner with the animation, and I thought it kind of got to the point, hit all the beats that were necessary, and got the whole story across to you, and it was satisfying. I think it was probably thematically my favorite of all of them. Although I did enjoy the Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi additions to the other stories as well. Those were my three favorite. I have no problem with Julian Sands. I would have just rather heard somebody more classic. I don't know, that was just kind of like, you did a good job.
Shots fired.
I'm not hating. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I think that as a whole, this film certainly illustrates Poe's obsession with death. Through, again, little things left out. Going back again, Lovecraft. I love Reanimator. It's not the story, but I do love the film. But I think this really gives you a sense of what Poe was obsessed with, which is death, and its inevitability.
Death and younger cousins, right? That's what
yes, younger cousins, absolutely. It was a different time.
It wasn't
Jerry
that
Lee
different
Lewis
of a
of
time.
horror.
Great balls of fire.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right. So I want to just go around the horn here. Like, what was your favorite piece in the anthology? And then we'll go around one more time after that, just to give final thoughts. For me, the Fall of the House of Usher that opens it is pretty damn great. The combination of a visual style that is kind of transcendent, moody, very sharp lined, very acute angles, and Christopher Lee's voice, as well as a great climax, which that story is actually kind of a little bit vague about this physicality. So they had to actually interpret a lot, but I think it works beautifully. Sam, I'd ask, but...
Oh, my favorite part was Julian Sands. Once I got to watching it.
Jonathan?
Oh, Telltale Heart. I just want to stay
Dan?
on for it.
It's hard to pick a favorite. I guess I would go with the facts in the case of Valdemar. But I do think Fall of House of Usher and the climax, again, beautiful.
Jay?
Well, I think I may be alone here. I'm going to say Pit and the Pendulum.
I like that one as well, too. Again, only the last one I didn't, so. Susan?
Definitely Telltale Heart. I don't know. The entire ambiance of it, and Bela Lugosi. And I'm somebody that I love that analog, crisp, give me some really old thing to listen to. And I don't know. I just kind of, it's easier for me to just dive into that, universe or whatever. But I would say that was definitely my favorite. But I agree. The Fall of the House of Usher really had just amazing animation as far as the actual house itself. Like there are some other things that I would have probably changed, but as far as that just being so picturesque and just I really felt that atmosphere as well in that. So I like that. Facts in the case of M. Valdemar, I never say it right either, but I did love that on the whole as well. So that's probably my second favorite. But yeah, Telltale Heart definitely was my favorite. And just what it stands for and the Telltale Heart itself, like the entire story. And, it's always been a thing for me. So so I love that one the most.
I get the impression, Susan, that when you die, you want to be cremated and have your ashes sold in an urn in a vintage, like secondhand shop. That's what I'm getting from that.
No.
No, she says no.
No. But I mean, look, I love vintage stuff and I love, like finding it, but there's also a lot of energy attached to people's stuff, like science energy, not woo-woo energy. And so like even as much as I love vintage stuff and all that, I don't know.
Stone.
Fall of the House of the Usher, just because it was able to get me involved in and everything. But honestly, my favorite narration is still Bela Lugosi. I mean, I'll play this again just to hear Bela Lugosi. Yeah.
I'm scared to go to eBay and find that 38.
There's not many of them.
Yeah.
Mike.
I enjoyed the wraparound story. I thought that brought me in with Poe's fascination with death, having a conversation with death. Because at first it's just, you have to kind of go with it to kind of see what's going on. I like how that led into it. I felt that it was front loaded with the Fall of the House of Usher. And it felt like it got weaker as it went along as far as the 72 minutes. That was a great one. Crisperly amazing. And the animation was great. And they truncated the story, but still kept all of its elements that were important. So that was cool. And of course, the facts in the case of whoever that guy is, that was one of my favorites. Just the way it was done, the animation and the way it was put together. And of course, Bela Lugosi and Telltale Heart. So those were the three highlights for me. And then the wraparound story was also engaging because it was kind of like going through Poe's fascination with death and breaking down why and his conversations with death. Because at first, it was just like this raven, or could be mistaken for a crow, depending on, what you're thinking. But a raven flies into a graveyard and starts having a conversation with nothing. And it's almost like he's as confused as we are. Which statue is it that's talking to him? Is it the grave marker of the next story? Is it just the death's overall voice communicating with him? That was fascinating to me, and I enjoyed that. And that wrapped it up really well, even though the last story is completely skippable and could be edited out of it and have a nice 65-minute movie. But that would be my three favorites. I out of the three, oh man, I probably have to go with the facts in the case. That would probably be my thematic, the way it was put together with the animation and the way it was told. But I can't discount Bela Lugosi and the Telltale Heart. That was because I can't expect a modern recording of his voice, you know, and that's all we got. And like you said, it's very rare to hear anything like that. So that made it very special. And I'm a fan of Universal horror. And I think the Black Cat is going to be coming up on a Spanguli episode. So I'm definitely going to be watching that because I like to watch all of that stuff. And Christopher Lee with Hammer. I mean, that dude is a book on his own. The stuff he did. I mean, that guy he lived 15 lives. I mean, that guy was amazing, you know. And to hear he just got that captivating voice. So that made it for me, and it really brought it up above any negatives it could have. Those 3 tales plus the 2 voice recordings and the overall wraparound story.
All right, so let's give a final review, whatever format you usually use or however you want to describe it. Let's start with Jay.
What? Format? What format I use?
So do you give things like a 1 out of 10 or a 5 stars,
gotcha.
however you want to do it?
I give it
That might be the pull from this video.
Yeah.
Start the video.
Well, some people, that might actually be their reaction. What?
I'll go 5 out of 10.
Reminds me of Heather's when they ask them all that question and they get to the last girl who's
What?
on drugs or what, like, what?
Sorry, I was looking at Bela Lugosi stuff on eBay. I apologize.
Time well spent.
Yes, indeed.
Susan.
I would go I would say 3 out of 5. I would say 3 out of 5. You've got your for me, the things that kind of go in the positive and on the negative, and it balances out somewhere in the middle. So I would say about a 3 out of 5. I do feel that on certain days or certain times, you know, I could go higher or like 2.5 or something, but 3. I'd say 3, because again, like I think most of us have said, the Mask of the Red Death, like, why? And the misuse of Roger Corman, 3.
3.
I'm convincing myself instead of you guys. Just so you know, like I'm trying to talk to myself about this. I'm gonna say 3 out of 5.
We do have people that watch these videos that try and tabulate a final score. That's why I think it's hilarious for us all to use a different method.
Yes.
Stone.
3.5 out of 5 for me. I mean, considering the fact that I do not dig this genre at all. I mean, okay, I've never even seen Finding Nemo. Sue me. But at any rate, I mean, but I mean, I found myself surprisingly getting into it. I mean, you know, like I said, it gets weaker as it goes along. At the Mask of the Red Death, it's kind of a blow at the end. But I mean, I enjoyed it for the most part. Surprisingly enough, I like the visual style. I like the designs. I like the music even. Oh, I especially love the music. Yeah, I mean, a lot of good stuff in it. I mean, and like I said, if you're a Poe fanatic, if you're an animation guru, definitely recommend it. Although here again, it's got a very limited audience, very niche audience. But 3.5, I enjoyed it.
Mike.
I'll go out of 10, but it's basically the same thing. I'll go 7 out of 10, which is basically the same thing as a 3.5, I guess. But the reason I would go higher than 5, like Jay said, is just because of Lugosi and Lee and the case of, those things are strong enough for me to give it the above average rating. Now, the rewatchability is kind of suspect. It's like I watched it. I was glad I watched it. How many times I revisit it? Probably not too many, but I did appreciate the different anime styles and the music and stuff that went along. I think there's enough good in it to give it an above average score, so I'll go 7 out of 10.
It sounds like you're reviewing a Matrix sequel to me. Dan.
Well, Fleshman Features does out of 5, so I will give this one 3.5 out of 5. It's not perfect, it's not a masterpiece, but I did enjoy it quite a bit. I would agree, Mask of the Red Death, maybe the placement of it at the end, well, minus the wraparound, of course, might have hurt it a little bit, but I really do enjoy it. And I forgot to point out the director, Raul Garcia, long history in animation. He started out on the Smurfs, of all things, in the early 80s.
Well, in the
I
Smurfs
didn't really have a
coming from
problem with the
Netherlands?
animation. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, he did.
Weren't the Smurfs from the Netherlands, a property that was actually made in the Netherlands, though?
Not an expert on the Smurfs, but I know what they are.
Aren't they supposed to be dead babies?
Yeah.
La 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 la.
Got a real Gargamel over here, guys.
I was much more an Azrael fan. But Jonathan,
I'm gonna give it an 18 3/4 out of 46.
That's really specific.
Come on,
you just broke our audience right there. They can't figure out that math.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you this right now, man. Like, I'm the problem with this movie, so I can't tell you like what I can't be like. It sucks because it doesn't. Like, it's a technically sound film. I'm the problem.
Wait, is this like it's not you, it's me? Is that what you're doing?
I'm giving that to, like, it's
So,
it seems unfair for me to be like, this movie
it's
fucked
not
up.
Because she didn't watch it.
It's not you, it's me. Always means it's really the other guy I'm fucking though.
I'm fucking another movie. I'm sorry. It's called Found. But no,
Sam.
seriously, sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish up.
No, I was just saying, I don't want to give the impression that it's a bad film. Because
but he gave it 18.35.
That's why I gave it an 18
out of 47.
Out of 46.
Out of 46.
But you're generous.
Strong showing.
You're generous considering.
That's like a 2.5.
He's fucking Smurfette. That's what he's doing.
At least the
Be
the
sure
only girl
to-
Smurf.
Well, busy girl. Sam, what would you give Julian Sands' performance in Extraordinary Tales?
5 Julians out of Sands, Lauren. Thank you for asking.
There you go.
No, but I am excited to actually watch this now. I mean, after listening to everybody else speak about it, and instead of like me just like flapping my fucking fat yap the whole episode, just cracking jokes. But no, I really enjoyed being able to hear what everybody thought about it, and I am kind of getting the itch to revisit some of Poe's work, because for me, you know, I came across it in school, but I know it was during winter because I spent somewhere in the ages of 12 to 14 reading Poe on a lot of cold, rainy days in winter. So I'm kind of looking forward to that again.
So, was your first credit card a Hot Topic store card?
I still have my first credit card because I only got it in 2017.
Wow.
Yep.
Mine's Menards.
Don't laugh. My credit score is like 820. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, well,
That's because you only got your
And
credit card in
wait.
2017.
and your social security number was what?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
No, wait, I want to know, Sam, since you have not seen this though, based on what everyone here has said, what do you think you would rate it?
There you go.
I think I'm probably going to rate it like, it's probably going to end up with me being like somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5, somewhere in that range. It may be like 2.25 or, 2 3/7.
Or 3 like me? Come on over.
I know, right? I'm kind of like,
I mean,
well, we'll find out. We'll see how Mask of the Red Death plays with me. So
we're talking just the animation, like 9 out of 10. You know, it's a great animation.
Yeah. I'm with that.
So I always go with a schoolhouse grade. So I would say that if you are a fan of Poe and classic horror cinema from the Golden Age, this is probably like a B-. You're going to see lots of room for improvement, but there's going to be certain things that just have such power because of just what the thing is and the fact that it exists. That's not always the greatest reason to love a movie, so I won't go above a B- on the good side. Now, if you're not beholden to those things. This is going to be more like a D+ at best. So I think everyone kind of came to the right general area on it. But I will say this, there's not much in the world like it. So I think that if you even have a passing interest in an animated Poe anthology with classic narration from Christopher Lee and Guillermo del Toro and the great Bela Lugosi, I think you'll almost have to at least give it a spin. And I think there's going to be people who go higher than any of us would. I think there's going to be people who go lower too. But I think that that's almost what we need in the genre, is more films that are starkly their own thing. I will take this over this year's Candyman any day of the week, because you know what? We've done that, right? We're kind of there already without having even seen a frame. So to me, I think this is important just for being the glorious, mediocre film that it is. Anyone have any final thoughts?
That's a great description. Glorious mediocre.
Sometimes
I like that.
Sometimes you crave fast food. That's what it is.
I mean, it is. It has its bright spots. It has its moments, its shining moments, and then it has moments where you need to go get the chips from the cabinet, and it's going to happen, and you're going to not have to pause it or rewind it. So
let it go.
It's only 72 minutes.
You just reminded me of something completely off topic that I need to rail against this for a second. Fuck you, Coca-Cola. Leave Coke Zero alone.
Coke Zero is getting
I swear,
a refresh.
If I have my favorite beverage, which is Coke Zero with lime, if I have it and it's not as good as it used to be, you can visit me with Saw in a loaf of bread.
Yeah, you could just put lime in a Coke Zero.
No. That's what I do. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Oh, I thought it was some weird Jersey variant you had up there.
No, there is Diet Coke with lime that exists in cans by itself, but no, that's not what I'm talking about.
It is fantastic.
Fine. Close.
He's not looking forward to new Coke Zero.
That's right.
Can we get a video off of that of you testing out the new Coke Zero?
Please.
Yeah, we need him like cracking a cold one open and the whole experience.
And he writes his congressman.
I'm not sure that it's completely in the wheelhouse of the channel, but we'll see what we can do. Anyway, thank you guys for joining the panel. For those of you who like the film, I hope that you got something maybe you will revisit at some point. For those of you who didn't, well, you know what? Fuck you. Hope you'll all join us for the next one, and nevermore.
Teeth. I saw the signs. Open the eyes. I saw the signs. It's raining man. It's raining man. Christian, at last, you're on your own. Fuck it. If that ends up anywhere else, I'm getting pissed.
Very nice.
I like it.